Hi, welcome to another episode of Cold Fusion, where I cover anything in science, technology, business or history. In front of an enthusiastic audience, a 35-year-old Trevor Milton stands on stage proudly proclaiming his latest achievement. The year was 2016, and the charismatic, energetic Trevor seems like he's just about to change the world. Behind him was his tool to do just that. It was a truck running on revolutionary hydrogen technology. It could save both money and the environment. This truck, called the Nikola was going to disrupt the $1 trillion trucking industry and would go on to make Trevor a multi-billionaire. Bosch, General Motors, and other big names all wanted to work with Trevor and his revolutionary company that would later be worth $34 billion. The only problem was that none of this was real. The vehicle behind him was simply a shell that couldn't even drive itself, and none of the technology that he talked about even existed. But this would only be the beginning of the lies. So how was everyone fooled? And how could a man look so confident about his achievements while knowing that none of what he was saying was real?
You are watching Cold Fusion TV.
Today, it seems like the world of startups is having its fair share of charismatic swindlers. From Theranos to Wirecard, the game plan is simple. Pretend that you have a revolutionary technology or business plan, gain billions in investment, and finally, fake it until you can cash out with billions. In the case of Nikola Motors, you might just end up with a $34 billion company. To understand how we got here, we have to go back. Our story starts in Utah with Trevor Milton. Trevor was born in 1982 and had a rough upbringing. His mother died of cancer when he was just 14 years of age, and he would witness her coughing up blood in her latter days. Trevor and his 4 siblings had to learn how to survive with a bedridden mother and a father who worked 4 hours away. It could be said that these experiences made Trevor driven. He wanted to make something of himself. Milton and his father were close. Many years later, they would even go into business together, but that comes later in the story. After high school, Milton took a Mormon missionary trip to the favelas in Brazil. The experience got him thinking about wider problems, particularly environmental ones. He would return back to Utah in 2003 and would attend the Utah Valley State College to study sales and marketing, but he would drop out after just 1 semester. He had his eyes on bigger things. He wanted to start his own company, and so he did. His first company dealt with security alarm sales, and Trevor would sell off the company for $300,000. But in this deal, there were already signs of trouble. According to the buyer of Milton's company, he overpromised the potential of the business, resulting in a loss for the buyer. Milton also allegedly cheated his business partner out of $50,000 during the sale. In 2009, he would move into the online ads business with a website that sold used cars. Trevor would then move on from selling used cars to building vehicle power plants. And if you think this was a bit of a leap, it was. He had no formal training in the industry. Undeterred though, this effort would come in the form of dehybrid. The plan was to transform existing diesel engines to run on compressed natural gas. Now, this idea was solid. Natural gas has less emissions, lower maintenance costs, and is overall safer. The execution of his plan, however, was a disaster. As mentioned, Trevor had no formal engineering experience, but after some good marketing, he managed to convince the company Swift Transportation to invest $2 million. In the deal, 10 trucks would be converted as a trial run, then later, 800 trucks. But as it turned out, Trevor wasn't pulling his weight in the deal. A 2012 lawsuit revealed that only 5 trucks had been delivered. In addition, the engines had major problems and didn't do at all what they claimed. And to top it off, part of that $2 million was squandered on personal living. Milton was simultaneously bleeding through investor money and needed more. In 2012, he tried to find another investor in Utah to buy out the company, but they smelt a rat and backed out of the agreement. To run away from all of his legal problems, Trevor started a new company with his father. It was called dHybrid Systems. dHybrid Systems and dHybrid were completely different companies, and the similarities in their names was intentional. Trevor and his father now had complete ownership and would work on the same technology, but now without the legal problems. This move left the whole D-Hybrid partners with nothing. As outlandish as this was, the plan worked, and a new company, Worthington Industries, paid $16 million for their company. The only problem was that the company was in shambles. In private conversations, Trevor admitted that parts of the engine systems were falling off the trucks, something he stated was potentially fatal. At the end of the day, all that mattered for Trevor is that the deal was paid out for him and his father.
I freaking helped design and develop and fix all these repairs that Worthington didn't know about. These backup cab units were actually falling off of the trash trucks.
Falling off the trash trucks.
Like breaking off. They were shearing the damn freaking frames and then coming off. Like nearly freaking causing deaths and stuff.
In 2014, Trevor founded what would become Nikola Motors. Meanwhile, Worthington was losing millions. The faulty engines that D-Hybrid had given them was causing nothing but problems. Milton was making money while the companies that he sold off were money pits. Milton would continue to convince people that he had valuable technology. On May 9, 2016, Nikola Motors announced the Nikola One, a semi-truck that would revolutionize the transport industry. It could travel 1,000 miles without stopping and only took 15 minutes of downtime to refill and do another 1,000 miles. The global trucking market is worth over $1 trillion, so a disruptive technology like this could be a game changer, if someone could make it work, that is. In a bizarre twist, allegedly, Nikola bought the design from a man in Croatia for a few $1,000s, but this didn't stop the company from suing Tesla for $2 billion, claiming that Tesla had stolen their design. Unaware of Milton's past, the world was abuzz with the news of the revolutionary truck. So how were they going to do this exactly? Well, with the same technology that had been a complete failure in the D-Hybrid companies, of course, compressed natural gas technology. The truck was to be revealed in a live event in December of 2016, a very tight deadline. Could Nikola pull it off? They must have thought that because they began to take pre-orders. They stated that the Nikola One was engineered, developed, and is finalizing assembly. But what did they actually have? By August of 2016, the Nikola One was just a frame on wheels. The body hadn't even arrived yet. There were no production facilities either, and according to a source familiar with the project, the workers were scrambling to the hardware store to pick up basic parts. Meanwhile, the Nikola Motor Company Twitter account was hyping up the event. They stressed that the truck would be fully functioning. Amidst all of this, at the beginning of August, while the truck was still a frame, the company abruptly announced that it had pivoted from compressed natural gas to hydrogen fuel cell technology. The hydrogen fuel cell announcement was even a shock to those within the company. In mid-November, as the show was drawing closer, the team was hard at work slapping the truck together. There were no electric motor cores or gears, only axles in an empty shell. The body finally did arrive in late November, roughly a week before the show. H2, the chemical formula for hydrogen, was decaled proudly on the side of the truck, even though there was no such technology inside. So I can understand that building a prototype can be less than elegant, but to call this fully functioning was at the very least a bit misleading, a fact that would later come back to haunt Nikola. But more on this later in the episode. When the big day came, Trevor seemingly couldn't hold back his emotion when talking. Perhaps it was an appeal to one's emotional side to shut down rational thinking and skepticism. Bloomberg would later state that the statements made by Trevor had alarmed some people familiar with the truck's capability. They told Bloomberg that the truck was inoperable and had missing key components to power itself. The whole truck was powered by a mains power cord that was connected under the stage. Trevor would put an emphasis on the touchscreens within the cabin, seemingly the only part of the truck that actually functioned. The whole thing was essentially a big shiny decoration.
So how long have you been working on this? Because this is a fully functioning truck right here that we're sitting in. So how long have you guys been working on this?
Years in secrecy. It's been very hard. Some of the people have found out about us over the last 4 or 5 months as we announced some of the lead up to this big event. But it took years and years to get here. This isn't just a pusher like a lot of vehicles that they unveil are just vehicles that don't actually function. This is a fully functioning vehicle, which is really incredible. You can go through. We can.
Functional or not, Trevor had smoothly talked his way to entrepreneurial fame. The internet was ablaze with buzz, and from there, they were off to the races. Following the event, in January of 2017, the company raised capital as part of its Series A round. Nikola also signed with Bosch, as well as fuel cell and hydrogen partners. The plan may have been to leverage existing suppliers to deliver on their promises. But as time passed and the hype from the December 2016 show faded, people that were following closely began talking about the company, stating that Nikola needed to show some updates on their truck, the Nikola One. So, in early 2018, a video of the Nikola One was produced to dispel the rumors that it wasn't a functioning truck. The video was called Nikola One in Motion, and the video seemingly worked. Even Arizona Governor Doug Ducey was impressed. He agreed to host the Nikola manufacturing headquarters in his state and even played a video during his announcement. And once again, there was now a tremendous amount of buzz and excitement. A lot of people were looking forward to the pre-production units to be released the following year, but this was never to be. It seems that Trevor was up to his old tricks again. He never really had any plans to finish developing the Nikola One truck. He was only interested in one thing: raising more money. After the 2016 announcement, to the shock of all of those involved in the Nikola One project, the truck's development was abandoned, but nobody outside the company knew this. The promotional Nikola One video proved to be a sham itself. According to a former employee who spoke with the Nikola chief engineer, Kevin Link, the video was simply the result of Nikola towing the truck to the top of the hill and letting it roll back down. Unsurprisingly, those who worked on the video had to sign NDAs. By September of 2019, Trevor Milton owned 40% of the company, and by age 37, he was now a billionaire. So, the company was going to use compressed natural gas technology and then pivoted towards hydrogen technology. They were going to use hydrogen as a kind of fuel to power an electric motor.
And why the difference? Well, hydrogen goes further than a battery electric truck does, and it's a lot lighter to operate. So ultimately, it's just a lot of like juggling these different things, but we're pretty close. We just ordered the largest order ever of electrolyzers that I know of. It was an order yesterday. It was over $30 million to produce over 40,000 kilograms of hydrogen. We just made that order yesterday from Nel out of Norway. So we're already prepping our first 5 stations to be up and running. We're breaking ground. We should be breaking ground this year on these stations.
Okay.
As good as this sounds, hydrogen is expensive and requires a lot of engineering to store and transport safely. The plan for Nikola Motors was to have 700 hydrogen stations around North America and 70 in Europe within the next decade. Nikola planned to make its own hydrogen by using energy from solar and renewable sources. This all sounds amazing, but when you look into the details of who was spearheading a lot of the key technology aspects, things get a little suspect. Nikola's director of hydrogen production is none other than Trevor Milton's brother. Previously to joining Nikola, his work consisted of pouring concrete and building a barn as a subcontractor. Not exactly the experience needed. According to those familiar with the matter, Travis really didn't do much at the company. He was kept around to do a few odd jobs, hold a rope here, fetch those tools, and that kind of thing. Trevor had given Travis, along with other family members, Nikola Motors stock worth over $110 million. Nikola's head of infrastructure development, in charge of building out those 700 plus hydrogen station networks, was previously a general manager of a golf club in Idaho. Again, not exactly the experience one would expect for the job. As pointed out by Kathy Wood, CEO of ARK Invest, hydrogen on average costs 3 times as much as electric. Trevor needed a way to fix this. In an interview, Trevor claimed that Nikola produces hydrogen for under $3 a kilogram, 81% cheaper than the rest of the world, representing a major breakthrough.
We're really an energy technology company. We sell the energy to consumers. Not consumers, but businesses that are buying the trucks. That's where the money is. Obviously, we want to reduce the cost of our truck, but we're now cheaper to drive than a diesel is per mile, and we make 5 times the revenue of our competitors. So it's awesome. That's why Nikola's really cracked the chicken and the egg. The generation that's investing now, they care more about the environmental impact of what you're doing then they do like, oh, well, you're 6 months or 8 months from revenue. They don't care. They're like, you know what? You're changing the world. You're going to reduce emissions more than anyone else. We're invested into you.
When pressed, Trevor later acknowledged that Nikola produces no hydrogen at all. But this didn't stop BP later pledging to join Nikola to build out their hydrogen fuel network. It really is amazing when you think about it. Trevor had perfected a devious game. He would act as a spokesperson for Nikola and make up lofty claims to gain partners. Essentially, Trevor would use these claims to get investors and more partners, and then use the brand recognition of those partners to get even more investors. Ultimately, all of this didn't matter though, because the next piece of technology that Trevor was going to announce was going to change the world. In late October 2019, Trevor began teasing on Twitter that Nikola was going to change the world with an upcoming announcement that was bigger than anything that he had announced in the past. While he was tweeting up a storm, in November of 2019, Milton cashed out $70 million and bought the most expensive house in Utah, a $33 million mansion on a 2,600-acre ranch. He told the Wall Street Journal that this place was, quote, a sanctuary for my family, friends, and others to enjoy. On November 18, 2019, Nikola began negotiations to go public. The very next day, the company announced that it had solved one of the greatest challenges facing sustainable energy, a high-density battery. This new prototype battery would provide 4 times the energy density of lithium-ion and could power a Tesla Model S for over 600 miles. On Twitter, Trevor claimed that he had seen this technology perform with his own eyes and promised a major demonstration. Riding high off the announcement, Nikola Motors began to receive serious attention, and Anheuser-Busch was first to jump on board, placing a pre-order for 800 trucks. Trevor estimated that the value of this new technology was to be worth hundreds of billions. The thing was, Nikola had no patent engineers, chemists, or research papers published. The truth was, Nikola had acquired the battery maker ZapGo for $56 million. As it turned out, ZapGo's technology was vaporware. It was a scam. It didn't exist. And so there it was. Nikola, who had misled so many, had been misled themselves. Interestingly, ZapGo was headed by Charles Resnick, a shady character who had just scammed NASA a few months before the Nikola deal. Charles used the money from NASA to hire numerous adult workers, certainly not a business expense. Charles would plead guilty in January of 2020, but once again, all of this didn't matter to Trevor. He was still on Twitter, touting the non-existent battery technology. With nothing more than the promise of a revolutionary truck that rolled down a hill, and a game-changing battery technology that was purchased from a company that was a scam, Nikola went public on June 4th, 2020. They did so through a technique called a reverse merger. The thing is, with reverse mergers, you don't have to disclose all the intricate details of your company, something that a regular IPO would require. This should have raised some red flags for investors if they knew more about the history of Nikola. But alas, investors were euphoric and Nikola shares spiked. Within 1 week of going public, the market value of Nikola surged past that of Ford, over $30 billion. To put things into perspective, Ford sold 5.5 million vehicles in 2019 with a revenue of $155 billion and had a market cap of around $28 billion. Nikola, on the other hand, sold nothing and was valued at $30 billion, making it the world's biggest truck maker without selling a single truck. And with that, overnight, Trevor became a multi-billionaire. It was settled, the markets had spoken. He was the next Elon Musk. Things would soon change for Trevor though, but not before one last cash grab. On September 8th, 2020, Nikola Motors announced a $2 billion partnership with General Motors. GM was going to take an 11% stake in the company and manufacture their electric pickup truck, the Nikola Badger. So questions have to be asked. Did General Motors do no research, or was something else at play here? Despite the chaos, Nikola was again accepting pre-orders for their Badger truck. To date, no one has ever seen a Nikola Badger. They only exist as a rendering as far as the public is concerned. Finally, After lying for years and roping in some of the biggest companies, 2 days after the GM deal on September 10th, the short-selling investment firm Hindenburg Research released a scathing report calling Nikola Motors an intricate fraud. The firm said it had gathered extensive evidence, including recorded phone calls, text messages, private emails, and behind-the-scenes photographs detailing dozens of false statements by Milton. They accused him of lying about Nikola's technology. This was a bombshell report, and soon the gates were blown wide open.
We believe this is only the beginning of Nikola's unraveling. Nikola's almost no intellectual property, products, or revenue to fall back on. We think the company's key asset was its founder's ability to raise money through hype, and then the Hindenburg is saying outright lies.
Trevor Milton knew that this was the end, and he publicly promised a full rebuttal to all the damaging claims. But instead, he deleted his social media accounts and disappeared.
Trevor Milton, the founder of electric truck company Nikola, is voluntarily stepping down as executive chairman and giving up his board seat. This move comes after short seller Hindenburg Research accused Milton of making false statements about Nikola's technology in order to try and grow and secure partnerships with automakers. Both the Justice Department and the SEC are investigating allegations made by Hindenburg.
On the 21st of September, Trevor steps down from the chairman position, and former vice chairman of GM, Stefan Gursky, takes over. Nikola's stock plunged by 40%, and negotiations between Nikola and other partners stalled. And finally, a sexual assault allegation by Trevor's own cousin just added to the horrible mess. Many banks liquidated their Nikola stock, seemingly in disgust. The company received a myriad of subpoenas, and investigations by the Department of Justice and the Securities and Exchange Commission commenced.
His company marketed as a game changer.
We've built something that no one else thought was possible.
Cleaner vehicles powered by hydrogen and electricity.
For every doubter out there that said that there's no way this is true, how can that be possible? We've done it.
But now the billionaire founder of Nikola Motor Company, Trevor Milton, is being charged with securities fraud.
Do you have anything to say about the charges?
We have a statement. Check it out.
Milton, seen leaving a Manhattan courthouse Thursday, charged by federal prosecutors who say he lied about every aspect of his truck of the future.
Milton claimed that the Nikola One could be driven, when in fact the closest it ever came to driving was when a group of Nikola engineers took it to the top of a hill and rolled it down so it could be filmed for a commercial.
Prosecutors claiming the truck's door even had to be taped up for the video so it wouldn't fall off.
At the end of July 2021, a federal grand jury charged Trevor Milton with 3 counts of criminal fraud. The US Attorney's Office in Manhattan accused the 39-year-old billionaire of lying to investors, making false statements about the company, and wire fraud. The SEC also filed civil securities fraud charges against him, requiring the court to permanently bar him from acting as an officer and ordered him to pay fines as well as give back any revenue gained by his deceit. Trevor Milton, of course, denies all wrongdoing and has pleaded not guilty to the charges, but this will be a matter for the courts to decide. Since the charges, Nikola's stock has been steadily falling. Following the indictment, the company stated, quote, "We remain committed to our previously announced milestones and timelines and are focused on delivering Nikola Tre battery trucks later this year from the company's manufacturing facilities." Nikola continues to move forward under new management, but it has to be said, correcting the course of a company built on fraudulent claims by a compulsive liar is not going to be easy. The GM deal lies in limbo, and the stock price is at an all-time low, and faith in the company dwindles every day. Bosch, General Motors, and a slew of investors are left holding the bag. On a wider point, it's becoming clear that investors have collectively lost their minds. It seems as if they're only driven by lofty promises without doing a shred of research. Everyone was just so excited that they didn't want to look deeper, and herein lies the problem. Think of yourself as an inexperienced investor. You heard about this new company, and it just showed off a revolutionary truck. It was powered by new hydrogen technology, and also had amazing new battery technology. They'd partnered with major companies like Bosch and BP, and this company has raised a lot of money. You'd think you've hit a gold mine. You'd also think that you've gotten in on the next Tesla. This whole train wreck really is the old adage, fake it until you make it. But what happens if the things that you promise turn out to be much harder than anticipated? When do you pass the point of no return and just keep lying until you get caught? For Milton, he just kept lying until the very end. In a way, the story of Trevor Milton and Nikola Motors would almost be impressive if it wasn't so morally bankrupt. Maybe he did this all to provide for his family that had suffered so much during those early years. But it could have just as easily been pure greed. I guess we may never know. And with that, that is the wild and twisting story of Nikola Motors. So let me know what you think in the comment section below. So thanks for watching. My name is Dagogo, and you have been watching Cold Fusion, and I'll catch you again soon for the next episode. Cheers guys, have a good one.
Cold Fusion. It's new thinking.
I don't want it, 'cause I'm stuck